Afternoon, Frank.
Hi, Professor. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks, and continuing to be to find interesting news. And as I was driving in here today, I heard on the BBC something which I think is really surprising because many people have become disappointed with what's happened in Egypt after the Arab Spring. And this was being explained by the BBC Arabic service.
Okay.
So this is giving something quite a lot of publicity that will be immediately accessible in Egypt. And the news was that there are a lot of atheists. Young people are turning to atheism. And somebody has started a YouTube site to attract atheists to get together. So that was one thing. And then after the discussion of that with the people doing it on the air had finished, the next thing was young people now kissing each other in the street.
Different genders?
Yes.
Not wearing headscarves.
Not wearing headscarves. And this is, well, some of them may have been wearing headscarves, but some of them weren't. In fact, one young woman had said she decided not to wear a headscarf. She couldn't see what the point of it was. And her parents got annoyed with her and threw her out of the house. And she went back and said, "It's my house.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You should leave if you don't like it."
Mm-hmm.
And apparently, I mean, from everything that was being said, they were getting away with it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I find this particularly interesting because I think, as I've said to you before on our weekly sessions, that this sort of thing has been happening in Iran for some time. And I've explained that by suggesting that Iran is a sophisticated urban society. And because it has an urban history, we can expect modernization to work beyond the control of a hierarchy of mullahs quite well, uncontrollably. And if that's true, the next place you would expect it to work in terms of urban history is Egypt. And of course, Cairo is an enormous city and has been for over a millennium. So it's interesting that these people who were the main agents in the Arab Spring, who got a lot out of the Arab Spring, but eventually found themselves with a Mubarak-type regime again, are now turning to more, what should we say, ways of changing the society that are particularly important for them in their everyday personal lives.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think a couple of observations. I'm not sure where in the Islamic pantheon of heretics, atheists fall. I imagine pretty down the ladder, probably below Christians and non-believers. The second thing is that these young people who are kissing publicly and the people who are coming out as professed atheists, I mean, this is what they fought for. This is what they died for. I mean, this is why 4 years ago, I mean, they were in Tahrir Square. And I take your point that the government is Mubarak back to the future. But on the other hand, with the quelling of the Muslim Brotherhood, it does seem to me from this distance that there seems to be a certain social kind of liberation that's been permitted. I'm not suggesting it's going to go back to the days of King Farouk, but I do see that step to the right that Nasser took and that was really intensified by Sadat. I see that eroding, which is very unusual. I mean, considering what's happening in the rest of the region.
Well, I think what's happening in the rest of the region illustrates the sort of thing that we've been saying before, that everything, the rate of change and whether or not how much resistance there is to change all depends on the amount of interaction there is with a larger number of people. Mm-hmm. And of course, the news in a little bit further east today is that the Islamic State is still negotiating with the Jordanians over whether or not a female
suicide bomber
will be released in exchange for the Japanese prisoner and also a Jordanian pilot. And the delay is apparently caused by the fact that the Jordanians feel they have no evidence that the Jordanian pilot is still alive. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And they want evidence for that before they agree. And it may not be entirely obvious to everybody hearing the news why there should be such a problem with this. But it appears that the Islamic State has a lot to gain out of getting Jordan to cooperate by actually negotiating something with it, because Jordan is part of Obama's coalition.
Yeah, it would certainly be a big press release kind of event for them. It would be a big publicity thing for them if they can do that.
I don't know whether you've seen any news this afternoon. I haven't been looking at the news this afternoon. I don't know whether there's been any decision yet.
No, as of a little while ago, the Jordanians are still holding out for proof of life.
And on the other hand, the Islamic State has announced the establishment of a new center in Pakistan.
Oh, I missed that. I'm sure. I'm sure the Pakistani government welcomes that with open arms. That's all they need.
Well, the Pakistani government at the moment is unhappy because Obama's been to India twice and hasn't been to Pakistan.
Yeah, I bet they are very upset about that. Yes.
But I think they're happy about the fact that Ashraf Ghani, the president of Afghanistan, is trying to develop a good collaborative relationship with Pakistan, mm-hmm. which is much better than the situation was with Hamid Karzai. Mm-hmm. However, there really is an awful problem in Pakistan with the resistance to change and the effort to reestablish an Islamic State such as it never really was before.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you a question. If we can focus back on Cairo for a second and continue to look farther east to Saudi Arabia. I can't think of a place that's less urbanized, perhaps, than is Saudi Arabia. And we've just seen the succession of the monarchy over there with the laying out of the crown prince in waiting, not even the crown prince, who is apparently finally not a first-generation descendant of the founder of the country. And clearly, they don't have the same urban situation as does Egypt. And clearly, they're not, I mean, they may be concerned, but they're not facing that kind of social interaction that's occurring, that's causing these kinds of public demonstrations, such as they are in Cairo.
No, it's interesting how they're still succeeding in preventing any expression of, what should we say, anything that would upset the Wahhabi establishment.
Well, I think by your analysis, it's fairly easy. I mean, because there just are not that many clumps of people that can't be aggressively controlled by the religious police, the Wahhabi police, and the various governmental arms.
But it is interesting that a lot of people, heads of state, went to Saudi Arabia to recognize, to offer condolences and recognize the new king, despite the awful human rights record.
Yes.
Which is quite embarrassing. Apparently, the deceased monarch imprisoned his two daughters, who are held in a house somewhere, and nobody quite knows what's happened to them.
Really?
Because his wife had row with him and left and went to live in London. I don't know how she got out of the country without his permission, but and he's punishing the daughters because he can't get hold of the wife. This is what I'm told. I didn't actually read this myself. But then Michelle Obama arrives without a headscarf.
I thought that was great.
And I've not seen anything in the press, really, not much about that anyway. But it's interesting that America continues to allow, to recognize the importance of Saudi Arabia, whatever it does. And one would think that that really isn't necessary anymore.
I think perhaps not necessary because of the oil glut or because of the globalization kind of.
Saudi Arabia needs us at least as much as we need them.
Well, with one exception, if the United States stopped playing that role, the Chinese would gladly take over because they need the oil.
Yes, maybe, but I'm not sure that Saudi Arabia would find the Chinese a better partner.
That would be quite a culture clash.
Don't worry about their human rights record. That's true.
No. Did you see that Kim Jong-un is going to Moscow this summer?
No, I didn't.
To participate in the 70th anniversary of the end of World War II.
And who else will be going?
Oh, I don't know, actually. Putin extended a wide invitation. Presumably, the United States even received one. I don't know who else is going to show up. It's a Russian-centric focus on the anniversary of the end of the war.
Has that happened before?
No, not that I know of.
Something to do with the other anniversaries that have happened recently?
I suspect so. When it comes around to May 8th, VE Day, I mean that will be the 70th anniversary of the end of the war. It will be obviously the last one with the survivors around.
We've been celebrating the beginning of the war recently, right?
That was the beginning of World War I.
Yeah, that's right.
You're getting your wars confused.
The Great War.
The Great Wars.
So
yes.
Maybe this is Russia's very clever attempt to steal the limelight. And this is, if this was announced today, it's on the day that there's a meeting in Brussels to decide on whether more sanctions should be applied to Russia because of what's happening in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yes, there's a lot of very sophisticated politics going on.
Well, then the North Koreans will get on that interminable train ride that they take to Moscow. It takes about 2 weeks.
Do you think that's the way they'll do it?
That's how his father traveled. Hopefully this guy will get on a plane.
His father had different reasons, I think. So because Kim Jong-un has certainly been traveling by air in order to get from Macau to Pyongyang.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm interested that he actually would take the risk of going to Moscow because that actually exposes him to a lot of situations in which he won't be able to control.
No, for sure. I mean, and starting with number one, leaving the store unattended at home.
Yeah.
So
that will certainly be very interesting to watch.
Mm-hmm. What are your views on what's going on with the Greeks?
I think that it's interesting that the Greeks have said that the party won, Syriza won, and that they said that they do not want to leave the euro. And now it's up to the euro to work out how it's going to accommodate the Greeks. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's good to see it working in that direction, because I think the Greek problem is a problem that really is the responsibility of the way the euro is organized to begin with.
Yes, I agree with that. This is playing right into Draghi's hands.
Yeah.
right? Because the Greeks are going to come to Brussels and they're going to be pleading for relief, and any reasonable person is going to be able to look at the package and say, well, boy, this, I know it's the Greeks' debt and everything else, but boy, this is a tough card we've given them. Maybe we need to do something structurally, and that the precedent's already been set in a tiny way by the EU-wide easing. So I don't know. It could be a big event.
But so much hangs on this because there are so many elections this year, and the Greek election was just the first of several that are coming. And of course, the most significant probably is the British election in May.
Right.
And whatever the is decided or even being negotiated in Brussels between now and then is going to have a big effect on the election outcome in England.
That's a very good point,
So
actually.
interesting year.
Well, okay. I guess we'll talk next week.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Thank you, Professor. All right.
Fine.